Democrats explode over Trump's Venezuela strikes. Impeachment calls ignite as declaration of war fury builds. In a stunning escalation that's rocking Washington, Democrats are ramping up demands for President Donald Trump's impeachment following U.S. military strikes on Venezuela. Lawmakers from the left are slamming the moves as an outright declaration of war without congressional approval, sparking fierce debates on executive power and foreign policy. This bold action by the Trump administration targets Venezuelan leadership amid ongoing tensions over election disputes and alleged threats to U.S. interests in the region. Critics argue it's a reckless overreach, while supporters see it as necessary defense against instability spilling over borders. The strikes, which occurred early last week, involved precision airstrikes on key Venezuelan military installations linked to President Nicolás Maduro's regime. Reports confirm U.S. forces used drones and missiles to hit radar systems and command centers believed to be coordinating activities against opposition groups. The Pentagon described the operation as a limited response to intelligence showing Venezuelan forces planning incursions into neighboring Colombia, a U.S. ally. Trump himself took to social media to defend the decision, calling it a strong message to dictators who threaten freedom. He emphasized that no American boots were on the ground, framing it as a surgical strike to protect regional stability. Democrats wasted no time in firing back. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries led the charge, stating in a press conference that Trump's actions violate the War Powers Resolution of 1973. That law requires presidents to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing forces to hostilities and limits such engagements without legislative backing. Jeffries declared, "This is not leadership, this is lawlessness." The president has unilaterally declared war on a sovereign nation, bypassing the people's representatives. We must hold him accountable through impeachment proceedings. His words echo a growing chorus among progressives who view the strikes as part of a broader pattern of executive overreach under Trump's second term. Senator Elizabeth Warren joined the fray, tweeting that the strikes represent a dangerous precedent that could drag us into endless conflicts. She pointed to historical parallels, like the U.S. interventions in Latin America during the Cold War, which often led to prolonged instability. Warren called for immediate hearings in the Senate Judiciary Committee to investigate the legal basis for the operation. Americans deserve transparency, not tweets, she added, highlighting Trump's reliance on social media for policy announcements. Other Democrats piled on with similar condemnations. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez accused the administration of using the strikes to distract from domestic issues, such as economic pressures and immigration debates. While families struggle with inflation, Trump is bombing abroad without a plan or approval, she said in a statement. Ocasio-Cortez urged her colleagues to draft articles of impeachment focused on abuse of power and violation of constitutional checks. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin emphasized the human cost, noting unconfirmed reports of civilian casualties in the strikes. "We cannot ignore the lives lost in this unauthorized aggression," Durbin remarked. The backlash stems from deeper frustrations with Trump's foreign policy approach. Since reclaiming the White House in 2025, Trump has pursued an America First agenda with aggressive stances toward adversaries. Venezuela has been a flashpoint for years, with the U.S. imposing sanctions on Maduro's government over human rights abuses and disputed elections. The recent strikes follow Maduro's crackdown on opposition leaders, including the arrest of several figures backed by Washington. Intelligence briefs suggest Venezuelan forces were amassing near the border, prompting the U.S. response. However, Democrats argue that diplomacy, not bombs, should have been the first resort. Republicans, on the other hand, are largely rallying behind Trump. House Speaker Mike Johnson dismissed the impeachment calls as partisan theater. He argued that the strikes fall under the president's authority as commander-in-chief to protect national security. Democrats are more interested in scoring political points than standing up to tyrants, Johnson said. Senator Marco Rubio, a longtime critic of Maduro, praised the operation as overdue justice for Venezuelans suffering under socialist rule. Rubio pointed to the exodus of millions of refugees straining U.S. borders, linking the strikes to immigration control. Legal experts are divided on the impeachment viability. The Constitution allows impeachment for high crimes and misdemeanors, a vague standard that has historically included abuses of power. Trump's first impeachment in 2019 involved Ukraine aid, and his second in 2021 centered on the January 6 Capitol riot. A third attempt over foreign policy would be unprecedented, but not impossible in a divided Congress. With Republicans holding slim majorities in both chambers, any impeachment effort faces steep odds. The House would need to pass articles, followed by a Senate trial requiring a two-thirds majority for conviction, a threshold unlikely without bipartisan support. Background on U.S. Venezuela relations adds context to the controversy. Venezuela, once a prosperous, oil-rich nation, has spiraled into crisis under Maduro's leadership since 2013. Hyperinflation, food shortages, and political repression have driven over 7 million people to flee, many to the U.S. Trump, during his first term, recognized opposition leader Juan Guaido as interim president and tightened sanctions. Biden eased some restrictions, focusing on negotiations, but Trump's return signaled a harder line. Recent events, including Maduro's disputed 2024 re-election, reignited calls for action. International reactions have been mixed. Allies like Colombia and Brazil expressed concern over escalation, but acknowledged threats from Venezuela. The United Nations called for restraint, with Secretary General Antonio Guterres urging dialogue. Russia and China, Maduro's backers, condemned the strikes as imperialist aggression, vowing support for Caracas. This global divide underscores the risks of broader conflict, potentially involving superpowers. Democrats' push for impeachment isn't just about Venezuela. It's a test of congressional authority in the modern era. Presidents from both parties have expanded executive war powers since 9/11, often citing imminent threats to sidestep Congress. The 2001 authorization for use of military force has been stretched to justify actions worldwide. Reform advocates, including some Republicans, see this as an opportunity to rein in such powers. Bipartisan bills to update the War Powers Resolution have gained traction, though passage remains uncertain as investigations unfold. Key questions linger. What specific intelligence justified the strikes? Were alternatives explored? How will this affect U.S. relations in Latin America? Trump administration officials, including Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in his return role, insist the operation was lawful and necessary. Pompeo briefed Congress belatedly, claiming the 48-hour window was met, but Democrats dispute the adequacy of the notification. Public opinion is split along partisan lines. Polls show Republicans overwhelmingly supporting the strikes, viewing them as tough leadership. Independents are wary, with many concerned about entanglement in another foreign quagmire. Democrats, predictably, oppose the action, with approval ratings dipping below 30% in that group. Overall, Trump's job approval hovers around 45%, buoyed by economic gains but vulnerable to foreign policy missteps. The impeachment rhetoric has energized Democratic bases ahead of midterms. Fundraising emails blast Trump's warmongering, while town halls feature heated discussions on constitutional duties. Progressive groups like MoveOn.org are organizing protests, demanding accountability. Conservatives counter with rallies supporting peace through strength, echoing Trump's campaign slogans. Looking ahead, the strikes could reshape U.S. strategy in the hemisphere. If successful in weakening Maduro, they might encourage democratic transitions. But failure risks backlash, including guerrilla warfare or alliances with U.S. foes. Analysts warn of oil market disruptions, given Venezuela's reserves potentially spiking global prices. In the halls of power, the battle lines are drawn. Democrats vow to pursue every avenue from subpoenas to floor speeches to challenge Trump's authority. Republicans stand firm, portraying the opposition as weak on security. This clash highlights enduring divides in American politics, where foreign policy becomes a domestic weapon. As the dust settles from the strikes, one thing is clear: the Venezuela crisis is far from over. Trump's bold move has thrust the U.S. into the spotlight, forcing a reckoning on war powers and presidential limits. Whether impeachment gains momentum or fizzles out, the episode underscores the fragility of checks and balances in turbulent times. The administration maintains that the strikes averted a larger threat, citing declassified reports of Venezuelan missile deployments. Skeptics demand full disclosure, arguing secrecy breeds distrust. Congressional oversight committees are gearing up for classified briefings, which could reveal more details or fuel further outrage. Venezuela's response has been defiant. Maduro addressed the nation, vowing retaliation and calling Trump a Yankee imperialist. Pro-government militias are mobilizing, raising fears of asymmetric warfare. Humanitarian aid groups report increased needs in border areas, with refugees caught in the crossfire. Experts in international law debate the strike's legality under the UN Charter, which prohibits force except in self-defense or with Security Council approval. The U.S. claims self-defense against imminent attacks, but evidence remains sparse publicly. Domestically, the controversy intersects with immigration debates. Trump links the strikes to border security, arguing instability in Venezuela drives migration caravans. Democrats counter that humane policies, not bombs, address root causes. As calls for impeachment echo, history offers lessons. Past presidents like Reagan in Grenada and Obama in Libya faced similar scrutiny but avoided impeachment. Trump's case, with his polarizing style, might differ. The coming weeks will test resolve on both sides. If new revelations emerge, momentum could shift. For now, the nation watches as partisan fires burn hot over Venezuela's fate. Follow so we can stay connected. Your support matters more than you know, and I appreciate every moment you give to listen. Your support is important to me, and it helps me a lot. It keeps me active, bringing you important information with your support and comments, likes and shares. Feel free to like, support, and subscribe. I will always provide content for you. I appreciate every support you give. Crowning Thoughts True Speaker Copyright 2025 by Santiago D.C. Maria, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution. I love you all and I appreciate each of you. Stay blessed. Thank you for listening. Love always. Santiago D.C. Maria.